Welcome to the Bovine Podcast, where we bring you the latest insights, stories, and strategies from the world of dairy cattle breeding. Each episode, we dive deep into the genetics, show ring success, and breeding philosophies that shape modern Holstein excellence. In today's episode, we're exploring the transformative impact of Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada on Holstein breeding. Whether you're a seasoned breeder, show enthusiast, or dairy professional looking to strengthen your herd, you'll find valuable takeaways in today's conversation. So let's get started with the Bovine Podcast, where great genetics and dairy passion meet.
Ever think about, like how one single cow, like just an average looking cow, could end up like really changing an entire breed?
Yeah.
Because like that's kind of what happened with this Holstein cow born back in 1986 in rural Ontario. Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada. She became like a global influencer in Holstein genetics.
Wow.
So like, how does that even happen? How does one animal like reshape a whole breed?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're diving into today on this deep dive, all about Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada and the absolutely massive impact she's had on Holstein breeding.
Yeah.
And not just here in North America, but really around the world.
And it wasn't just about looks with Ada, right? Like she was more than just a pretty face in the showroom.
Oh, absolutely.
What makes her story like so interesting for people like us in the industry is how she kind of like bridged this huge gap between the cows that everyone wanted to look at. You know, the ones winning all the banners,
right,
and then the cows that were really like, putting up the big milk numbers.
Yeah.
It's like she found this sweet spot between like show ring glamour and the then emerging world of genomic science.
Exactly. She really kind of sparked a dynasty, and her influence is still felt today in modern Holstein herds. So to really understand her significance, we need to like rewind a bit and look at the Holstein landscape when she first came on the scene back in the mid-1980s.
Okay, so like paint a picture for us. What was the Holstein world like back then? I vaguely remember something about this like Great Divide or something.
Yeah, you're right on the money there. The mid-1980s were a really interesting time. There was this like big tension. A lot of folks called it the Great Divide between type and production. You had on one side the traditional show breeders.
Okay.
These are the people really focused on conformation. They wanted cows with that, that certain look, that structural correctness that just shines in the show ring. They were all about beauty, essentially.
So these were like the head turners, like the pinup models of the dairy world.
Yeah, exactly. But then on the other side, you had this growing group of more commercial breeders, and these guys were all about the genetic indexes. Those numbers that predicted things like milk, yield, butterfat percentages, protein production.
Right, the bottom line stuff.
Yeah, efficiency and output. And we can't forget about the AI organizations at this time. They were really pushing those young sire sampling programs, where they'd take semen from promising young bulls and use it widely to test out their offspring.
Right.
Those programs were becoming a major force in genetic improvement.
So basically, like two totally different ways of thinking about breeding.
Absolutely. And while those breeders focused on type had been the dominant force for a long time, those production-oriented operations were starting to see better economic returns. Some folks even noted how the real leadership in genetic improvement started to shift from breeds and prominent herds to artificial insemination organizations.
Interesting. So where does our star Ada fit into all of this?
She comes into the picture right in the middle of this shift.
Okay.
And what's amazing is that her descendants ended up bridging these two seemingly opposite priorities.
Wow.
They excelled in both the good looks department and those all-important production figures. It's really a story about finding that perfect blend.
Okay, let's hear it then.
Yeah.
Tell me about the birth of this legend. Where did it all begin?
Well, it all started on September 13th, 1986 at Aitkenbrae Farm in Holstein, Ontario. That's where Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada was born. And her family tree, oh man, it was packed with Holstein royalty. Her sire was the one and only Hanover Hill Starbuck.
Oh yeah, I've heard that name, a true icon.
A legend. Even today, Starbuck was known for siring daughters with exceptional udders and overall good type.
Okay.
He was super popular. And her dam was Aitkenbrae Chic Arlene, who was classified good plus 80 as a 2-year-old. Now, she wasn't an EX97 herself.
Right.
But this particular cross of Starbuck on this specific cow, it really turned out to be transformative for the Holstein breed. But to really get to the root of Ada's greatness, we need to dig a little deeper into her family history.
Okay, so let's go way back. What's the foundation of this incredible lineage?
We're going all the way back to the 1940s with a cow named Bannastyne Dutchland Clothild. She was a real star, setting a world record for fat production as a senior 2-year-old in 1948.
Wow.
Her breeder, Tom Hayden, who used the Benella prefix, he bred Clothild to Spring Farm Sovereign Supreme. And this mating, it produced a heifer named Benella Sovereign Supreme Delight. But get this, she was actually considered quite poor in terms of type.
You're kidding? A world record holder in the family tree and the results of disappointment? That's farming for you, right?
I know, right? So much so that Hayden actually sold Delight for a pretty low price to his friend Cecil Barber. But Barber, he was a smart cattleman. He saw something in Delight that others missed. He bred her to Lifflock Re-Echo Voyager, and that produced a cow named Sheila Voyager. And then Sheila Voyager was bred to Pabst Walker Ollie, and that's how Seabar Ollie Beale was born back in 1959.
Okay, so we're tracing the lines here. What happens with Ollie?
In the mid-1960s, Walter Aitken was always looking to improve his herd, and he bought the 5-year-old Ollie Bell. He actually got her through a cattle dealer named Bill Snively.
Okay.
Now, Aitkenbrae Farm itself was already a pretty big operation. It was a partnership between Morley Aitken and Don Lance starting back in 1978. They built up a really top-notch herd under the Aitkenbrae prefix. They were always winning premier breeder and exhibitor banners at the shows. Their breeding skills even got them 2 master breeder shields.
Wow, that's a huge honor.
A big deal in our industry.
So Aitkenbrae was already a well-respected name in the Holstein world. Okay. And what about Don Lance? What was his connection to the farm?
It goes way back. Don's father passed away when he was only 6 years old, and his uncle Walter Aitken really took him under his wing. Dutton spent pretty much every weekend and all his summers working on the farm. That's where his love for farming and Holsteins really started. It never left him. And when he got older, his first job was working with his uncle. When Walter decided to retire, he was farming with his son Morley, and they both saw how talented and hardworking Don was. So Walter offered to sell Don his share of the business. It's a real story about mentorship and a shared passion for the black and whites.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So back to Ollie Bell. You mentioned something about her not being the best mother.
Right. Well, despite her impressive pedigree, Ollie Bell didn't seem to have much of a maternal instinct. Her first 2 calves at Aitkenbrae actually died soon after birth.
Oh, no.
But one daughter did survive Aitkenbrae Radar Olive.
Okay.
And through a few generations of careful breeding, it was this line that led to Aitkenbrae Chic Arlene. And when she was bred to the famous Hanover Hill Starbuck, we got the one and only Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada. So even with a bit of a rocky start with Ollie Bell, that strong foundation really paid off in the end. It just goes to show you never know where that next great cow will come from.
It's really amazing how those family lines can keep going, and then all of a sudden, boom, something incredible happens.
Yeah.
So when did people in the industry start to realize that Ada was something special?
It was after her first calving in 1988. A well-known cattleman named Brian Carscadden. He was one of the first to really notice her. He was working for a firm in California, but he was also buying and selling high-quality cattle. He and Ken Empey were regular visitors at Aitkenbrae.
Okay.
They'd bought animals from Morley and Don before Don Lance remembers it well. He said Brian was the first one to really see her potential. Brian and Ken talked about Ada a bit, and in the end, Ken Empey bought her.
So it was a good eye for cattle that made that first crucial connection. And what was Aitkenbrae's thinking on selling such a promising young heifer? You don't see farms letting go of potential superstars every day.
Don Lance and Morley Aitken, they had a really practical and, pretty forward-thinking approach. They knew that for a truly great cow to really reach her full potential and get recognized, she often needed to go to someone with the resources and the drive to promote her. They were running a successful 50-cow herd. They understood the realities of cash flow and farm management.
Right.
They realized that sometimes letting go of a good cow was the best way for her genetics to really thrive and make a bigger impact on the breed. They wanted to see their breeding program reach its full potential, even if it meant letting go of some exceptional animals.
Makes sense from a business point of view.
Yeah.
So Empey buys Ada, and that's when her career really takes off, right?
Exactly. Ken Empey buys her, and Ada heads south all the way to Ohio. There was this investment group called Hygerian Associates. They had Robert Binger and William Atkins in it, and they wanted to build a top-quality Holstein herd. They got in touch with Ken Empey, who brought them to see Ada. She was only about 2 months fresh at the time, still early in her first lactation, but she must have made a big impression because they bought her right there and took her to their farm in Ohio.
Wow. And I bet she didn't disappoint her new owners.
Not at all. As a 2-year-old, she finished an incredible lactation record, especially for a young cow. Over 25,000 pounds of milk, over 900 pounds of butterfat at 3.6%, and almost 800 pounds of protein at 3.2%. Those are numbers that'll turn heads.
Man, those are some serious production figures.
For sure. And the show ring wins weren't far behind. During that same lactation, Binder and Atkins, they brought in a new partner named Lawson Bennett, and they decided to take Ada to the Michigan State Fair in the summer of 1989. She won her senior 2-year-old class, and get this, she was named grand champion of the whole show. What a debut.
From big milk numbers to grand champion, that's an incredible combination.
Yeah.
What came next for her? I think she was at World Dairy Expo in Madison that same year.
You're right. Her next big show was Madison, 1989. Howard Binder was the judge that year. She initially got second in her class, but was later moved to third after the official milkout behind Dupasquier Stab Winnie and the eventual All-American com-star Lori Sheik.
Okay.
Now, even though she didn't win her class in Madison, being there was really important because it's where she caught the eye of some big names in the Holstein industry.
Like Douglas, King of Kingstead Farms, and the folks at Gray Wilcombe.
Exactly. Douglas King from Kingstead Farms in Maryland and the team from Gray Wilcombe, they were both at Madison that year, and Ada really impressed them. King later said he thought she was a little on the small side, but very correct in her confirmation. But he was clearly impressed enough with her overall quality and her potential that he and Wilcombe approached Hygerian Associates and bought her in December of 1989.
A new chapter begins with Kingstead and Wilcombe.
Yeah.
And this is when she really becomes a household name in the show ring.
Absolutely. Under their care, Ada really blossomed. She got taller, filled out, and they prepped her meticulously for the 1990 show season. This was her breakout year. She won the 3-year-old class and was named Supreme Champion at the Eastern National Show. And then at Madison that year, she took first place in her class and won Best Udder.
Wow.
And to top it all off, she was unanimously named the All-American Senior 3-year-old of 1990. A tremendous honor to be chosen unanimously.
Unanimous. That really says something. So after all that success in the show ring, what was the next step in building her legacy and creating that dynasty we talked about?
The next big connection was with Hardy Shore Jr., the head of Shoremar Inc. At the end of that amazing 1990 show season, Hardy bought a half interest in Ada. Now, Hardy had a background as a professional hoof trimmer.
Oh, wow.
He had a real eye for structural correctness, especially in a cow's feet and legs. He was really drawn to Ada's exceptional feet and legs. He often said she had some of the best feet he'd ever seen on a cow. This focus on functional conformation would become really important later on when he made breeding decisions with her.
Interesting. So a hoof trimmer who really understands how a cow's body works sees something special beyond just the show ring beauty.
Yeah.
What happened with Shoremar's involvement?
Well, in 1991, Shoremar had their big herd dispersal sale.
Right.
And Ada ended up selling for a whopping $71,000. That was the second highest price in the wholesale, which shows how highly regarded she was.
Wow.
After the sale, Kingstead and Wilcombe bought back the other half of Ada and ended their partnership with Shore.
So Ada goes back to being fully owned by Kingstead and Wilcombe. But Shore's part in her story wasn't over, was it? He still had a big role in shaping her genetic legacy.
Absolutely. Even during that short time as co-owner, Hardy Shore made a really important breeding decision, one that really set the stage for the Ada empire and changed the future of the Holstein breed. He decided to flush Ada to a few different sires, and one of those matings was with Donendale Skychief, an excellent extra sire known for producing daughters with strength and dairy character. Now, Shore really liked Skychief's strengths, but he knew the bull could benefit from improvement in his daughter's feet, and as we know, that's where Ada really excelled. This pairing, aiming to combine Skychief's good traits with Ada's amazing feet, it ended up producing the two daughters that really made Ada a breeding legend, a true matriarch.
What a smart breeding move.
Yeah.
So who were these game-changing daughters that made Ada a Holstein legend?
This is where the Ada empire really starts to take shape, and her influence grows exponentially. That flesh to Donendale Skychief produced two daughters who became legends themselves, Shoremar S Alicia and MS Kingstead Chief Adeen. These two full sisters became the cornerstones of Ada's impact on Holstein genetics across the world.
Okay, let's start with Alicia. I remember her being something really special both in the show ring and as a brood cow.
You got it. Shoremar S. Alicia, born in 1995, she took the family's reputation to a whole new level. She ended up being classified Excellent 97, which puts her in this elite group of only about 35 registered Holstein cows in North America to ever get that close to a perfect score. And her show career actually surpassed even her famous dam's achievements. Alicia was nominated All-American 5 times in milking form.
Wow.
Which shows her consistency, and she was named Supreme Champion of the Royal Winter Fair in 2000, which is like the biggest show ring honor in Canada.
5-time All-American nominee and Supreme Champion at the Royal Citus. That's amazing. How did she even come to be? What's the story behind that mating?
It's another one of those stories that shows how small the dairy world really is. David Innes of the City View herd in Ontario, he met Hardy Shore at a cattle show and asked about buying some embryos from Ada.
Okay.
And it just so happened that Ada had just had a really successful flush to Donendale Skychief, so they made a deal for 2 embryos.
Wow.
And the 2 calves that resulted were jointly owned by Shore and Innes, and one of those calves turned out to be the incredible Shoremar Alicia. A lucky break for everyone involved.
So a chance meeting leads to a world champion. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What happened with Alicia once she started competing?
Under the expert care and handling of Jeff Butler, Howard Binder, and the Kingstead team, Alicia was unstoppable. She topped the 5-year-old class at Madison and then went on to win the Grand Championship at the Royal Winter Fair in 2000.
Wow.
Those big wins made her the unanimous All-American and All-Canadian 5-year-old that year. A truly remarkable achievement. But she didn't stop there. In 2003, as an older cow, she won the 125,000-pound cow class and was again named Grand Champion at the Eastern National Show. She was the All-American aged cow that year, too. She kept going, earning Reserve All-American in 2004 and High Honorable Mention in 2005. She was at the top of her game for years.
A real show ring powerhouse. But she was more than just a pretty face. She also became a key part of the breed as a brood cow, right?
Exactly. Like her dam Ada Alicia really helped move the breed forward. She produced over a dozen excellent daughters from different sires, showing how well she could pass on those great traits. Her influence really spread through her Startmore Rudolph daughter, City View Alicia, who was also classified Excellent 92, and earned 23 recognition in Canada for her production and type. And also through her daughters by Regan Crest Elton Durham, BKB Abby, who became an excellent 95 3E Dom cow with multiple production awards, and BKB Amanda, who is classified excellent 92 GMD Dom and also a top producer. So she wasn't just a champ herself, she was making the next generation of champions.
That's amazing. Now let's talk about the other Skychief daughter, MS Kingstead Chief Adeen. I understand she had a big impact, but maybe in a slightly different way than her sister.
Yeah, Adeen, born in 1997, she turned out to be just as influential, maybe even more so, but in a wider range of ways. She's often called a foundation cow for a lot of big-name herds. Through her many descendants, she's connected to some of the most famous families in the Holstein breed, the Atwood, Atlee, Ariel, and Autumn lines. All of them have had a huge impact on modern Holsteins.
Wow, what a family tree.
Yeah.
So how did Adeen's story unfold?
Well, her story starts in a pretty unique way. In 1997, Kingstead Farms decided to disperse their whole herd in a big sale. There were 3 buyers who really wanted to get the young Chief Adeen, who was only about 2 weeks old at the time,
Wow.
to decide who would get her. They actually flipped a coin. Cranberry Meadows Farm, owned by Gary and Crystal Dell, they won the coin toss and got her. And when she was old enough to breed, they flushed her to the popular sire Mifflin Storm, which resulted in 5 heifers that all got classified very good as 2-year-olds.
Wow, a coin flip deciding the fate of a future genetic powerhouse.
Yeah, you really can't make this stuff up.
So what happened to Adeen after Cranberry Meadows?
Adeen was sold as a 2-year-old to a group of well-known breeders that included Billy and Mike Heath of Heath Holsteins, Gerald Todd, and Amlaird Callum McKinvin. In the 6 months they owned her, they flushed her to Commissar Lee.
Good.
And the star of that mating was Amlaird Lee Alice, who got a lot of attention when she was named the first junior 2-year-old at Madison in 2003, and then became an All-American.
So even in a short time, she was already showing how she could produce top-quality offspring. And she also shared the spotlight with her sister Alicia at the national level, didn't she?
That's right. In the year 2000, Shoremar S Alicia and MS Kingstead Chief Adeen did something really amazing. They were unanimously chosen as the All-American Produce of Dam.
Wow.
It's not common at all for 2 full sisters to get that kind of recognition together. Adeen was also nominated for All-American as a junior 3-year-old in 2000, and that year she produced over 30,000 pounds of milk with a 4% butterfat test. Talk about a cow who could do it all.
That's incredible. So where did Adeen go after that successful period?
She was sold to another partnership this time with Jeff Butler and Lance and Amy Ruppert. Later on, Douglas King and Kingstead Farms bought out the Ruppert's share of Adeen.
Okay.
And from then on, all her offspring carried the BVK prefix, which represented Butler View and Kingstead Ged. Jeff Butler, who worked with Chief Adeen for over a decade, he called her one of the most influential and one of the only cows in the breed with offspring over plus 2,500 on Genomics and All-American progeny. That really shows how special she was excelling in both the show ring and the world of genomics.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Bridging those 2 worlds. And her impact as a brood cow, beyond those early wins, it was huge, wasn't it?
It was enormous, and it lasted. Adeen went on to have an incredible 51 daughters who were classified excellent worldwide. That puts her in a very elite group, second only to the legendary Ashlyn for most excellent daughters. That many top-quality offspring really cemented her status as an industry elite and spread the influence of the Ada family across the globe, impacting so many herds.
51 excellent daughters. That's amazing, and a real testament to her ability to pass on those desirable traits. Douglas King must have some amazing memories from working with both Alicia and Adeen.
He does. He often talked about that time as the thrill of a lifetime and was so proud of their achievement. He even talked about how cool it would be to get all their daughters together in one barn.
Yeah.
What a sight that would be. A true testament to Ada's legacy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now this brings us to the next generation, and what's often called the Golden Flush. This is where Adeen's granddaughter Durham Atlee comes in, right?
You got it. While there have been so many smart breeding decisions that have contributed to the success of the Ada family, the matings with Adeen's granddaughter MD Delight Durham Atlee E.T. were probably the most important for the family's international impact, and their continued relevance in the genomic era. MD Delight Storm Amberley, one of Adeen's daughters by Mothland Storm. She gave birth to MD Delight Durham Atlee E.T. on September 11, 2001. Her sire was Reagan Crest, Elton Durham, another super influential sire known for producing daughters with great udders and good production. Atlee was later bought as a bred heifer by a partnership that included Michael Heath of Heath Holsteins, Rick and Shannon Allen, and Jason Lloyd.
And Heath's decision to buy her wasn't exactly love at first sight, was it?
It wasn't. Michael first saw Atlee as a calf at the Maryland Convention sale, where he was working his last sale as a professional fitter. He said he liked her pedigree and her look, but she was pretty small for her age. About a year later, he found her at Foster's Farm in North Carolina, who had bought her at that Maryland sale. She was priced at $20,000 as a springing heifer, and Heath decided to take a chance. He liked her strong maternal pedigree, being a granddaughter of Chief Adeen, and figured that even if she was only classified very good 85 as a 2-year-old, she'd probably be in demand for embryo sales, which could make the purchase worthwhile.
So a bit of gamble that really paid off. What happened with Atlee once her show career began?
It paid off big time. They took Atlee all the way from North Carolina to Massachusetts for their state show on a super hot summer day. But she toughed it out and actually won her class the very next day.
Wow.
Later that year, she got 15th in the senior 2-year-old class at Madison. Then, as a senior 3-year-old in 2005, she wasn't supposed to calve until September 1st, but because of a wrong breeding date, she ended up calving in mid-September, just a few weeks before Madison.
Oh.
The partners weren't sure if she'd be ready to compete so soon after calving, but Heath saw her potential and convinced them to take her to Madison anyway, figuring they had nothing to lose. In an incredible turn of events, less than a week after calving MD Delight, Durham Atlee was named Reserve Intermediate Champion of the 2005 International Holstein Show.
From a small calf that almost got passed over to reserve champion in Madison, that's quite a journey.
Yeah.
And Heath really understood how important showing at Madison was for a cow's reputation, didn't he?
He did. He famously said that she became known worldwide because of her success at Madison, which shows how important the show ring still is for building a reputation and creating demand, even as genomics was becoming more popular.
Okay, so now we finally arrived at the Golden Flush, the breeding decision that really launched the Ada legacy into the genomic era and had a global impact. Tell me all about that mating.
The moment that really made the Ada family internationally known and put them at the forefront of the genomic age was when MD Delight Durham Atlee E.T. was bred to the famous Braedale Goldwyn in 2007.
Okay.
This mating produced an amazing group of sons, a flesh that's become legendary. We're talking about the birth of bulls like Maple Downs, IGW Atwood Allendale, I Attic Allendale, I Atticus Maple Downs, IGW Atlantic Allendale, IGW Arden, and Mr. Atlee's Altamazing. Some of the most influential names in Holstein genetics.
A real all-star team of sires.
Yeah.
And these bulls went to all the major AI organizations, right?
That's right. Atwood, Arden, and Atlantic went to Select Sires Attic, and Atticus were bought by Cemex, and Altamazing went to Alta Genetics Inc. And in that same year, 2007, Atlee's son by Pixton Shottle MS Atlee's SHT Aftershock was bought by St. Jacobs ABC, spreading her influence even further.
So her genetics were going everywhere through these high-demand sons. And there's a pretty surprising story about Atwood's early days, isn't there?
There is. It's pretty ironic, actually. Steve Velthuis from Velthuis Farms, he bought some embryos from this golden flush and ended up with 3 heifers and 5 bulls. And he later said that Atwood was actually the one left that no one particularly wanted when the big AI companies were picking from the flush.
Really?
This is when genomics was really taking off, and Atwood's full brothers had early genomic results that were so good that the AI studs didn't feel like they needed to test Atwood right away. But Steve Velthuis, he has a great eye for pedigrees, and he decided to collect semen from Atwood even before his genomic results came back.
Wow, the bull that went on to become a global superstar was almost overlooked.
I know, right? But through conversation between Steve Velthuis and Ed Fellers, a group of breeders got together and invested in Atwood to get his sampling done, and the results, well, they were amazing. Atwood became a leader in the breed, exceeding everyone's expectations for type, and demand for his semen just exploded. Velthuis pointed out that with semen from Braedale Goldwyn becoming harder to get and more expensive, Atwood was a great replacement for those breeders who wanted that Goldwyn blood in their herds.
What a story. And Atwood's impact wasn't just a short-term thing. His influence on type and conformation has been huge.
Absolutely. By the end of 2013, all 6 of Atlee's proven sons had earned superior type status, and 5 of them were ranked in the top 10 for type in the whole breed.
Wow.
This incredible consistency in passing on good type led the Holstein evaluator Tim Abbott to say that Atlee's ability to transmit outstanding type appears to be as strong as that of any cow in the entire history of the breed.
Wow, what a statement.
And it wasn't just talk. In the fall of 2015, Charwell Attic Marcy, an EX95 daughter of Allendale I Attic, one of those golden flush brothers, she finished an undefeated show season by winning the grand championships at both the Royal Winter Fair and Madison.
Wow.
That's real proof of the power of this family.
Definitely. And there was another really famous daughter from that golden flush, wasn't there? One that sold for a record price?
Yeah, MS Atlee's Goldwyn Ariel ET, she was classified very good 89 as a young cow and was named Reserve All-American Junior 2-year-old in 2009. She was later bought by a Canadian syndicate for a mind-blowing $55 million, which shows the incredible value of the Ada family genetics.
$15 million.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So looking back, how has the legacy of Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada changed modern Holstein breeding?
The Ada family story really reflects how dairy cattle breeding has changed over the last few decades. We talked about the great divide between type and production earlier, and what's so amazing about the Ada family is that they've been able to excel in both areas generation after generation. They've stayed relevant and important through all the changes in the industry, from Ada's show ring wins to her daughters Alicia and Adeen passing on great type, and then to Atwood and his brothers dominating the genomic era.
It's like they were leaders in every era of Holstein breeding.
Exactly. Today, genomic indexes are essential for almost all breeding decisions, whether a breeder is focused on show type, high milk production, or better health traits.
Right.
And the Ada family has kept succeeding in this genomic era with descendants that rank high for both type and production indexes. They show that you don't have to choose one or the other.
And their impact isn't just in North America, right? Ada's influence has gone global.
Absolutely. The Ada family has spread all over the world, affecting breeding programs on every continent.
Wow.
Their descendants have done really well in shows and have been super valuable in breeding programs all over the world, which shows how strong and adaptable their genetics are. For example, in Japan, TMR Adeen Dundee, Chief E.T., a daughter of MS Kingstead Chief Adeen, was named Grand Champion at a big national show there.
Wow. So Ada's legacy has really spread far and wide. What are some of the biggest takeaways from the Ada story for breeders and industry professionals?
I think there are a few key lessons. First, it shows the importance of making smart and strategic breeding decisions.
Right.
Think about the breeding of Ada to Hanover Hill Starbuck, which combined great traits, and then the golden flush of Durham Atlee to Braedale Goldwyn, which was all about amplifying strengths and creating a balanced genetic profile. These weren't random pairings, they were well thought out decisions to get superior offspring. And this idea of strategic mating is still super important, even with genomics. While we have all this data and technology now, the best breeding programs still use a balanced approach, combining data with visual assessment and a good understanding of cow families like Ada's.
So it's about using genomics, but not forgetting about the traditional ways of evaluating cattle.
Exactly. The Ada family shows how to blend tradition and innovation in breeding. New technology has given us powerful tools like genomics and advanced reproduction, but the basic principles of finding genetically superior animals and spreading those good traits are still at the heart of success. And when you look at the results of this kind of careful breeding over time, the big increases in milk production, better health, and improvements in conformation, it's clear that this approach makes a huge difference for the whole industry.
And the commercial success of the Ada family. Their high sale prices, that's another important part of her legacy.
Absolutely. The impact of Ada's sale and the prices her descendants have brought over the years have been consistently higher than average, and that's only gone up in the genomic era, as we saw with the $15 million sale of MS Atlee's Goldwyn Ariel Elite Genetics. Especially those that excel in a lot of different areas are worth a lot of money.
So as we look to the future, How will Ada's story continue to shape the Holstein breed?
The Holstein breed is always evolving, with genomic selection speeding up genetic improvement. The fact that the Ada family has thrived through all these changes in technology and breeding goals is a good example for breeders who want long-term success. The challenge for the industry is to keep those distinctive Holstein traits while also improving things like milk yield components, health, and fertility. The Ada family has shown that great type and conformation can go hand in hand with high production and strong genetics. And we have to remember that the modern Holstein is the result of centuries of careful breeding by dedicated people who have adapted to the changing needs of the dairy industry while keeping the breed's core strength.
It's incredible that one cow from rural Ontario could have such a huge and lasting impact on the dairy industry worldwide.
It really is amazing. Through her fantastic daughters, her influential granddaughter, and her many high-ranking descendants like Atwood, the Ada family hasn't just stayed relevant. They've been leaders in every era of dairy cattle breeding. Charlie McAvoy said it best: her descendants have changed our barns and show strings forever. And that change goes beyond the show ring. It affects commercial dairy farms everywhere, improving genetics and productivity.
That's so true.
For dairy breeders today, the story of Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada is an inspiring example of what's possible when you can find and effectively use truly exceptional animals in your breeding program. Her story continues through her descendants, and her influence will be felt in the Holstein breed for generations to come.
So for all of you listening, the key takeaways are clear. One exceptional cow can transform a whole breed through smart breeding and strong genetics. Finding that balance between great type and good genomic merit is key for lasting success. Careful matings can really make those good traits stronger over time, and elite genetics are worth a lot of money. But maybe the most important lesson is that even with all the new technology, the basic quality of the breed is still super important.
Absolutely.
And as you think about your own breeding programs, think about this. What cow in your herd might be your next Ada?
Yeah.
Think about how you can use what we've learned from Ada's story in your own breeding decisions.
And I'd encourage everyone to check out the archives on the Bullvine website at www.bullvine.com.
Yes.
There are so many fascinating stories, analyses, and insights into the world of Holstein genetics and dairy cattle breeding. It's a constantly changing and exciting world. And the story of Aitkenbrae Starbuck Ada is just one amazing chapter in a much bigger story.
That wraps up another episode of the Bullvine Podcast. Thanks for tuning in and investing your time with us today. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and share it with a fellow breeder who might find it valuable. Visit us at thebullvine.com for show notes, expanded articles, and our complete catalog of resources for dairy professionals. Until next time, keep breeding for excellence.